Whitaker. Mr. Gillespie? Okay. Good evening, everyone. We will begin our meeting now. I've asked Mr. Badgett if he would to lead us in prayer for those who would like to join him, and also to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
If you would join me in prayer, please. Our Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight humbly to just thank you for so many blessings that you have given us. We thank you for this county to live in. We thank you for the school system. We thank you for the staff, the kids, the parents, and everyone that comes together to do the right things for the right reasons for our children. We can't appreciate you enough, and we thank you for all the things you do. We ask it as we go through this school year that you keep our students and staff safe, and that we ask that you help us with the knowledge and information we need to make the right decisions. We thank you for all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, welcome. We want to call our meeting to order. I do want to acknowledge that Dr. Terry Mosley is not with us this evening. This is the 1 week out of the year that she has another commitment. However, I will say that she has joined us for closed session earlier this evening, so she is still very much involved. I will also ask for an approval of the agenda, though there is one item I would like to assign or to add to the consent items, and that is an approval of Mrs. Atkinson as our nominee to the North Carolina School Board Association Board. This was had to be put forth needs a vote for all of our board members. She's had to submit information to that. The state board will decide on that in November, following local elections for that. So we want to add that as a consent item that puts it in writing that we did have an approval for her to be our nominee in November. Okay, thank you. With that addition, I'll ask for an approval of the agenda at this time.
Make a motion we approve the agenda with the addendum.
Okay, I have an approval motion from Mr. Badgett. Do I have a second? Second. I have a second from Mrs. Atkinson. All those in favor? Thank you very much. We'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank
for
you.
recognitions.
Good evening, board members. I want to welcome everyone here tonight. It's great to be here in October with everyone. As it's my pleasure at the beginning of each board meeting to recognize one special employee. We have the opportunity tonight to recognize Miss Christy Robertson, 8th grade English Language Arts teacher from Gentry Middle School. Let's give her a big round of applause. Miss Robertson, who do you have with you tonight?
I have my daughter Jada and my husband Marty.
Thank you both for being here with us. Miss Robertson, will you join me at the podium? So I had the opportunity, board members, you had the opportunity to share kind of the joy that we have one Friday per month of recognizing a special employee. For those in the audience, we had our school board visit at Gentry Middle School last Friday that started at 9 a.m. and we started with a very special recognition of Miss Robertson. And what was really neat is all the 8th graders joined her in the hallway for that special recognition. We even had some students that stepped up and made comments about her, very positive comments about her, but also just really, I think, showed us how much they love her and how much she loves them. And I think really at the end of the day, we have teachers that give their all every day for our students, that give their all. And Miss Christy Robertson is a great example for us to hold up in high regard as an excellent teacher that makes excellent relationships with her students and that has high expectations for herself, her students, and her school. So Miss Robertson, we are just so thankful to have you in Surry County Schools. We're thankful for your leadership, and we're thankful for your service to our schools and our students. I would like to read a couple of these nominations. I have watched Miss Robertson go above and beyond the last 3 years I have been at Gentry. She makes amazing connections with her kids, helps out co-workers, and does an amazing job with parents. She is a teacher who expects their best, has high expectations, but laughter is a common sound from her classroom. Every child should have a Christy Robertson as a teacher. Another nomination, Miss Robertson is an educator that goes over and beyond anything expected. She is passionate about teaching, and she is passionate about making students' lives better. She gives selflessly to those around her to meet their needs and their wants. She inspires her co-workers to give more of themselves. She is a hard worker and helps whenever she can. Miss Robertson has helped me understand so much, and it is only the 3rd week of school. Obviously, that nomination was from one of her students. This year in 8th grade, Mr. Whitaker has had the challenge of filling an 8th grade ELA position. So this next nomination kind of lends itself to that. Since the beginning of school, Christy has taken on the job of 2 teachers. Our other 8th grade ELA teacher was hired for a coaching position, so we had a sub. Christy has, from the beginning, was worried about those students falling behind, and especially on Fridays when that sub had to take off. Of course, we know those crazy rules that we have to follow in HR, Mr. Vi. She planned, organized Canvas classes, and taught all 6 8th grade ELA classes in the Media Center on Fridays. I think that just shows you the dedication that Miss Robertson has for her students and for her school. She loves and pours out for Gentry Middle School at all times of the day and the week. Mr. Whitaker, would you like to say a few words about this amazing teacher?
It's very easy for me to talk about Miss Robertson. I'll share what I shared. Well, first of all, Dr. Reeves mentioned we had a few students to come up front and share, and I sort of impromptu, I did that. I knew that was not a risk. I knew that our students would, I can't always say that, but that was not a risk in this situation because our students would speak very favorably and highly of Miss Robertson, and I knew that. I also I shared with everyone on Friday that as educators and disciplinaries and as classroom managers, I like to use the phrase, don't allow them to see the buttons that you have. Elementary, middle, and high school students, if they figure out those buttons, I promise they're going to push them. Miss Robertson has no buttons. Okay? She never has, well, she does. I've pushed a few of them from time to time, but Miss Robertson has no buttons for the kids, so she's excellent in this classroom management, and the kids are always working hard. And I agree. I'll say one last thing is Dr. Reeves also alluded to this, is that we've been without another certified, we've had a certified teacher in the form of a substitute, but that substitute has retired a couple of times, and she came back to help us out, so she really wants to sort of be there but she wants to retire also. Well, Miss Robertson has really stepped in, and sometimes teachers, and I mean this as a positive, sometimes teachers can get a little selfish, meaning they want their kids, possession of their own kids, and take pride in their own kids. Well, Miss Robertson has taken pride in the whole 8th grade this year thus far in reading, and that's asking a lot of a teacher to be responsible for her kids on record and for another group of kids on record. But I think that's enough said for Miss Robertson. So thank you, board members and Dr. Reese, for the opportunity to speak about Miss Robertson here this evening.
Well, Ms. Robertson, on behalf of the Board of Education, I'd like to present this certificate for you. That's yours to keep. Also, I have some goodies from the Education Foundation. I want to thank our area businesses. Kraus Auto Detailing has a gift car wash gift certificate, Scenic Automotive with a Visa gift card, Horace Mann with a gift bag, a gift card to 13 Bones, and did you see the sign in front of the school?
Well, it was there a very short time.
Okay.
So when I went to go out at lunch, it was no longer there.
Oh, well, we
the
had
wind from
the
the
wind took it. So Sign Gypsies provided this nice sign that said, "Congratulations, Miss Robertson, Leader of the Month," or Leader, SES Leader. And it was a lot of letters for Sign Gypsies. I mean, but anyway, this is yours. Congratulations, and I've got an umbrella for you.
Oh, thank you.
So please let us congratulate you. Let the board congratulate you, and we'll take some pictures.
And don't worry, you'll see your picture on Highway 52.
That's right. That's right.
The STEM School of Distinction.
That's right.
Good evening, board members. I have the pleasure of recognizing Meadowview Magnet Middle School for their designation as a North Carolina STEM School of Distinction. So on April 28th, 2022, the application for Meadowview for the renewal of the designation as a STEM school, it was approved and extended for an additional 3 years. This is something that doesn't come easy. There's a really, really heavy-duty process that's behind this. It happens systematically and purposefully because they're integrating these content areas in such a way that it becomes a natural part of instruction. Schools that receive the STEM School of Distinction honor undergo a rigorous application process to demonstrate the application of STEM attributes that are interwoven throughout the school setting. So I'd like to recognize Colby Beamer and Meadowview Magnet Middle School. Come up to the board.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
That's right.
It was submitted.
Board members, I want to take a moment on our next recognition to simply say thank you. We're here to recognize the generous donation from Mr. Lewis F. Johnson Estate to Copeland Elementary School. I want to thank Steve Johnson and his wife, brother of Lewis F. Johnston, for attending tonight. It means a lot that you would be here with us. And Mr. Coe, thank you for joining us from the Copeland community. I understand that you know the Johnson brothers. Yes, sir. Thank you for being with us. And at this time, I'd like to ask the principal, Ms. Tamara Martin, to come forward. She had several conversations with Mr. Johnson, and I'd like for her to recount those and kind of tell you what his wishes were for this generous donation of $34,000 to Copeland Elementary School. Ms. Martin.
Thank you. We are super excited to be here tonight, recognizing Mr. Lewis Johnson and his family. As a young girl, I grew up right across the road from Steve for about 20 plus years. And so Lewis Johnson, his brother, called me several times over the course of the school year last year, and I did not make the connection at all. So Steve had to make it for me. But Mr. Johnson, over the course of our phone calls, really was very fond of Copeland Elementary. He recounted multiple stories with me about growing up, being on the ball fields, just there from sunup until sundown until Mama had to come get them and take them home when it got dark. And so he really wanted children at Copeland Elementary to be able to share those same experiences with health and PE and physical activity and being able to participate in organized sports, just as the Johnson brothers did. So we are very grateful for them being in the community and for this donation. We have partnered with the Youth Foundation at Copeland Elementary, and we are looking to provide some soccer goals, some batting cages, tees, replacing our basketball goals that are existing in our gym. Only 2 of them are movable, and so we want to be able to replace those and make them all adjustable so that our basketball players at Copeland from little bitty on up can be able to participate in basketball. They have requested basketballs, a cart to put the basketballs on, and then some playground improvements to our playground. And none of that would be possible without Mr. Lewis Johnson and the family, Steve. So we're just thankful.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, would you come forward and let me present this certificate of appreciation presented to on behalf of the Board of Education, presented to the Johnson family in recognition for the generous donation of Mr. Lewis F. Johnston Estate to the Copeland Elementary School, signed by myself and by our board chair, Mrs. Mamie Sefton. If you would like to congratulate you and thank you for being here. We appreciate Mr. Johnston and for his generous donation, and if you would take this and let the board thank you for that kind donation as well.
While they're coming over, I just want to add, there are a number of former Copeland students in this room. Go ahead, raise your hand. You went to Copeland.
Oh, I went to Copeland.
So thank you so very much. We're excited that it will help future students.
Born and raised about a half a mile from the school.
Mm-hmm.
So Mama didn't come and get us, she hollered. The Lewis loves, as well as me, the community and people. Wonderful place. Saddest day at Copeland is when the gym burned down. Not many, but early will remember that. The old barn top fire, that was it. So it was gone. But thank you very much on behalf of our family. And Lewis wanted to do something. I didn't know he was doing this, but he said he was going to do something for the elementary school. And it was elementary high school way back when, for some of us. So, but anyway, thank you, Dr. Reed.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank y'all.
And you'd be pleased to know that the board is going to renovate that gymnasium and has sought $600,000 from the county commissioners. So we're going to begin renovation soon at Copeland and really will modernize the entire gym facility.
Right.
So it's going to look great.
Yeah.
We'll invite you to that ribbon cutting.
Okay, appreciate it.
Come on in here.
Mr. Coe, would you?
Thank you so much.
Maybe we get that camera wide enough.
Have a wide angle.
All right, we got one every. All right, big smiles, everyone.
Good evening, everybody. I'm here to give you our Year 3 progress for our school transformation grant, our CARE grant. There we go, as Mr. Gillespie gets it pulled up for us. So you can advance. So we do have 4 goals for our grant. And the first one looks at improving school climate through our MTSS system, our tiered systems of support. Our second goal is to provide teacher professional development and technical assistance so that we're implementing MTSS with fidelity. Our third goal is student development of leadership skills. This is all about our leadership framework. And then our last goal is to design a high-quality approach that leads to the prevention of opioid abuse and to support students who may be impacted from family addiction. So those are our 4 main goals that we look at each year from our grant. So some implementation progress that we've made. Of course, our grant does hire 4 employees through the grant. We are currently seeking 1, which is the mental health counselor. We've had lots of inquiries, been declined a couple times, but we're still seeking a mental health counselor. So if you know of anybody. Also, we do lots of trainings. These are done yearly through our grant. We do zones of regulation for all of our counselors and behavior specialists. This is a tier 2 in our support system that we use to help kids with emotion regulation and self-management of emotions. We do our youth mental health first aid training. Last year we were able to train all staff in youth mental health first aid, and we have begun this year. We trained on our differentiated PD day with the work of the curriculum instruction and team and Ms. Harris. I was able to do secondary folks on that day, and so we'll be working, I know, with elementary staff. You can see that's a fall expectation. And I know with letters it takes up a lot of time, so we're working with Ms. Spicer on dates on where we can train new elementary staff. And of course, you know, this does apply in our school mental health plan and at the general statute where we do have to have mental health training, so this helps that piece. Through our partnership with the Center of Creative Leadership, you can see that we've had our 2nd cohort of training with leadership champions, and this helps to build our school teams, helps our admin to have folks who are knowledgeable about our leadership framework and help them implement each month. And we also have our teacher academies. We just finished up this past year cohort 10 and 11. With the teacher leadership academies, and then of course our leadership team gets to take part in retreats at the Center for Creative Leadership. We also provide counselor trainings through, it's called Esser training. It's student support, students exposed to trauma training, and this is also a tier 2 training that counselors can do in small groups. It provides them with some activities and some resources to help kids who've been exposed to trauma. They can do it in small groups or individually based on what the student needs. Too Good for Drugs and Too Good for Drugs and Violence. We completed that training at the beginning of last year with our middle and high school PE teachers and implemented this program in our health and PE departments in middle and high. We also trained with the health department and their education department, and they help us with implementation in elementary schools. It's been a little harder with their schedules during COVID to get those in, but we're working on getting those into the elementary schools with their help. Also, we look at trauma-focused cognitive behavior therapy, and that's through our school psychologist and our mental health counselor. That's a tier 3 training, so that would be a support for individual students. And so our folks have been trained in that as well and done some individual counseling based on that tier 3 support. And then each year I work with beginning teachers, training them on the leadership framework and classroom management and that core 1 instruction for behavior. So those are some trainings that we've completed. Of course, for fall, we're looking at youth mental health first aid, getting that finished up for new staff that come through elementary staff. We do have some new counselors, and so we'll work on getting them trained in that zones of regulation and the Esser training. Our school counselors through ASCA and the North Carolina School Counseling Association will attend the School Counselor Conference in November. So the grant helps pay for their participation in that. They learn great strategies for all levels of our MTSS system. And then we do have some new psychologists that we're working on getting trained in that trauma-focused cognitive-based therapy training, that tier 3.
What are some of the topics that you cover under the mental health and first aid, since that goes to all teachers?
There's a variety of different topics.
Yeah.
We look at de-escalation strategies.
Mm-hmm.
We look at crisis, suicide. Yes, recognizing those signs and symptoms. They also look at recognizing substance abuse, overdoses, what those signs and symptoms are, psychotic states. They learn ALGE, that's the acronym that they use, and that's assess, listen non-judgmentally, give reassurance and information, encourage self-help, and encourage professional help. They kind of use that as their guidance, and it's not linear. I want it to be linear, but it's not, because it's ever changing, because you're always assessing what the student, how they're behaving, how they're interacting, and then where do I need to go from there? Do I just need to listen to them? Maybe they just need somebody to listen to, talk to. Maybe they need some professional help. Maybe I need to go get the school counselor, or I need to go get the school social worker, because they need more than I can provide. So that training kind of teaches a teacher how to use ALGE in a crisis situation versus a non-crisis situation. If it's in a non-crisis, we may teach those de-escalation strategies and just kind of building that relationship and that rapport with that student so that they have a trusted adult that they can talk to. So, you're welcome. Any other questions about the progress for implementation?
No question, but I do want to make just a quick comment. I obviously am very close with a young lady who is very involved in this, and I believe is a leader in this field. And I think all of us as parents, as citizens, grandparents, think every child comes to school well-fed, pumped up, and ready to sit in that chair and learn and listen all day, and it's just not the case. So many of them come in with mental health issues because of things that happen at home or other reasons. We have to have this. We have to have this to get our students on a footing that they can learn, because you know there's a lot of pressure out there for us to just teach art, reading, writing, arithmetic, but if we don't take care of this, they can't learn the other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to thank you and your team for everything you do to help those students to see there is a trusted adult on their side that's there to help them, and then they can turn to learning.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for saying that.
If you ever have an opportunity, because I know with the youth mental health first aid, it's offered at a lot of places, different organizations. If you ever have a chance to be part of that, it is very helpful in lots of fields, not just education. I mean, the community college use, I mean, it's anywhere and everywhere. So if
Yes.
you ever have a chance, you'll feel much better about what to do and how to know the difference and that kind of thing, if you could take that.
Okay, you can advance.
One more quick question.
Yes.
The county now went from 1 employee in the opioid abuse prevention office to 10. So now they have a robust staff. Are y'all involved with them? Can you get some support from them to help with this?
We are.
That last bullet?
We do. We help. They actually, I am a part of their once a month all-star prevention team. I go and listen to what they're doing and what they're putting together. And like, for example, they'll partner with us for Red Ribbon Week. We invited them to our leadership summit. They did a session about signs and symptoms of substance abuse and resources that we have in the county.
Good.
And so, yes, we do partner with that agency.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, next slide. So when we're looking at our progress and what we're doing with the CARE grant, we look at these data points. The first is our school climate survey, which we give yearly. We give it to all stakeholders, parents, staff, and students. That's our biggest because it comes from the federal government where we got the grant. And so we use that as our main data point that we kind of judge our goals by. But we also use school data, and there you can see FAM-S and FAM-D are what the school improvement teams use at the schools, because it lets us know what the needs are at the school through that MTSS plan. Do they need help with team structure? Do they need help with interventions? And it lets our district team know how to support them. The FAM-D is for the district team. We actually did that for the first time this summer. So we look at the FAM-D is done with our regional IABS consultant, and that kind of helps us walk through what we need to do as a team at the district level. Also, we use the Center for Creative Leadership. They have a survey that we give to students and staff each year. And then along with, and it's not up here, is our Panorama survey data, which that opened today. So Panorama is also something that we use. We also have 2 reports that we give to our program office, and one is the Interim Report. We did that in May, and then we're getting ready to do our annual report for year 3, and that's due here in 2 weeks. So working on lots of information to pull for that report. So looking at our school climate survey that we give once a year, this past year we gave it in January, February, and then you'll notice there was a decline in our participation from the year before. But think about the year before, that 2021 school year. We had people on AB days, some were remote, so a lot more folks were on technology, those type things. But we tried to pick, and we work with a C&I department on when there's no benchmarks, no exams, we don't want anything that may interfere with participation. So we thought about those type things. We also communicate, we work with Ms. Lyons, she puts it on social media, she puts links out. We work with principals, we give them sample school messages that they can send out to remind folks. And so we'll do that again this year. We'll give it about the same time in hopes that our participation will rebound a little bit. But there you can see our numbers as far as participation for the year. Now looking at our results, this is part of Goal 1, and this is student perceptions. So here you can see that students understand their feelings and their own and others' feelings, but they perceive behavior and interactions a little less positively in 21-22. So there again, as we come out of the pandemic, that changed a little bit for students, their perception. Of course, during the pandemic, 21-20, again, they were in mass. They may have done an A-B day. They may have done remote. So they may have been at home. They could have some anxiety, being overwhelmed as they return. That social skills, being isolated, might not have developed as much. And I think some kids were a little afraid as they came back with that interaction. So there you can see there are some differences within the 21-22 school year versus the year before. We did see an increase in bullying last year. That is, as you can see, that went up. And we don't want to see that. We want it to stay down. But more kids were interacting with each other, coming back to school, and it could be that, we did see our support referrals increased for anxiety and being overwhelmed, so that could have contributed to it as well. So things that would help. We're working with C&I on looking at some curriculums and different things we can do for bullying, and our Save Promise Clubs, which is part of our Say Something Anonymous reporting and Sandy Hook Promise. They do a lot around being included, accepting, and that bullying prevention. And so as we begin those this school year, hopefully we'll see a difference in that particular area. Okay. Next slide looks at the parent perspective for Goal 1, and that's that MTSS fidelity. For the most part, parents perceive school services and communications more positively in 21-22 than in 20-21. And then there was a slight decrease in 21-22 in how parents perceive staff caring for their child. Of course, expectations changed from 20-21 to 21-22, but it's still high. It's still a high percentage. So kudos to the schools, to the admin teams, to the teachers for having that focused one-on-one parent conversations, parent conferences, as well as those small group orientation nights. I think parents really valued that as well. A lot of communication through social media. So overall parent satisfaction was up.
I think it's interesting that the parents felt this one's fair, but the students before didn't.
Yes, I noticed that one too, Mr. Badgett, yes. Okay, next slide. Next slide gets the staff perspective. Again, this survey looks at all stakeholders, staff, parents, and students. So the staff perspective around Goal 1 and our MTSS strategies and interventions. Overall, more positively in 21-22 as far as the school services, environment, and resources, except for we had a slide in discipline and SEL services. So those particular needs kind of fell a little bit. We look at those in terms of, quality counseling and other services to help students. We do have MOUs, but some of our MOUs do not have outside therapists that can come in. And so counselors were a little overwhelmed this past year with our referrals. And so finding some needed outside placement when they don't have therapists was kind of hard to do. But discipline is fair. That's a difference for teachers as well. You see that little drop there. But that overall, our MTSS district team will use this data to help us this school year to determine the needs and where we might need to go. Okay. Our next is around goal 2, and this is educator development. This is that professional development. As you can see, all these are high in that staff believe that they have the needs, or they are equipped to help students develop strategies to understand and control their feelings and their actions. You saw all the professional development that we put into place, but all of these have high. The only slide was the last one: programs and resources at the school are adequate to support students' learning, and that was just a slight decrease. So not sure what that would be, because we do provide them with a lot of resources, but there's always things we can improve on and that we can put in their toolkit. So. This is goal 3. This is all around that leadership development, and as you can see, students believe that leadership is important. The student leadership efficacy increased in 21-22 to 3.96. It's on a scale of 1 to 5. So it's way up there. CCL likes for it to be right around that 4 mark and higher. So, and you see what they are asked about. So they believe that leadership can be taught, that they are a leader as themselves. They believe that they can challenge their ability to be a leader, and they can improve their leadership skills. So this is, as you can see, our mark as we've been given it. It's continued to go up. Had a dip during the pandemic, but now it's gone back up. This has contributed to all of our leadership development, our leadership framework, our design team, our hard work of our teachers implementing our leadership framework. So this is great to see as it increased. The last one is our opioid abuse and prevention. This is goal 4. This one makes me a little sad because this one you could see an increase. Middle and high school students get this particular question, and they perceive that it's okay to smoke and use alcohol, and students use alcohol and drugs. So you can see these are the type questions, and we did see an increase in 21-22 with these. So some things that may contribute is, we implemented Too Good for Drugs last year. Was the first year we've done that in middle and high school. And that is within their health and PE classes. So it touches every freshman as they come in to high school. It touches every 6th, 7th, and 8th grader in the middle school, but we only did it 1 year. So that could be one of the reasons as they learn more strategies and learn through this program, which teaches them about good choices, those type things. We hope this might change within that perspective. Also learning about the programs that our health department can provide, like Catch My Breath, which is the vaping prevention program, things that we can use the health department to come in, and our substance abuse office as they continue to develop their prevention plans and partnering with them to come in to our schools. So they did great work at Pilot Mountain Middle School last year, the substance abuse program, and so they come into different schools. Hopefully we'll see a change in this perception from schools.
That middle statement, is that a statement that students are then reacting to, and is that based on what they see or what they hear say?
It could, it just be, it's their perception at school. Yep. Mm-hmm. Concerning, yes.
Very much so.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
So, suspension data looks more at, when I look at it, it talks more about vaping. We have a lot of suspension data around vaping, so that may be the drug piece, but that is very concerning when I looked at that particular data. Yep. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Have we been working with the health department thus far with the
Yes.
vaping?
Yes, we have. I know that several schools used the Catch My Breath program last year to help maybe combat and help prevent that vaping. So. We'd like to see it a little bit more, but yeah. And so this last slide looks at staff perception of for opioid abuse and prevention. And more elementary staff than middle school staff perceive schools have programs to address and prevent substance abuse. And I think this is where we have our consistent DARE program, you know, in elementary school, and hopefully with the consistency of Too Good for Drugs and implementing some of those programs through our outside partners, we can change that perspective in middle high school as well. So. Any additional questions? Yes, sir.
I'm concerned about the bullying question.
Yes.
Almost
Me too.
2.5 times higher than last year.
Yes, sir.
So I guess my first question would be is, did we see any difference in elementary, middle, and high as far as the breakdown? And did we go any deeper into that question? I'm assuming the question says, have you been bullied? You know, is there any way to say, how have you been, I mean, have you been picked on?
And whatever that question was, if you can get back to that student slide, that's the question that they see.
Okay.
On there. That's the particular question that's asked. Now, we can look at it in terms of elementary, middle, and high school. We can break it down in terms of those three categories. But that, students get bullied at this school. Yeah. That's what they see.
So, yeah,
that's the actual question.
My experience teaching 15 years in a high school is they don't bully in front of teachers. It's out of sight. So, you know, how do we address that? How do we, I mean, you can't tell teachers, look out for bullying, because they don't do it in front of the teachers. So, in most cases, not always. But how do we address that to help the kids feel safer that they're not being bullied?
And I think maybe with the Safe Promise Clubs, from what I have researched and what we're getting ready to start with those, it teaches groups of kids how to look for those signs and symptoms for bullying. Okay. So, and encourages them to find a trusted adult or use our Say Something anonymous reporting to report it. So I think those things may help combat those things that they may not see or they may not tell. But if they're encouraging their classmates to anonymously report it, that's kind of what our Save clubs can do.
Because I think those last two questions really go with each other.
Yes, they do.
So you said that data can be broken down?
Yes, we can. We can.
So if you had it broken down, then after you have these clubs this year, then go back and look at it to see what it is next year.
Right.
Yes.
Did we make some progress?
Did we have,
Okay.
I mean, you know, I mean, off the top of your head, Jody, just pull this out now. With students getting bullied at school, did we see a difference in their perception or their feelings? Did we see that large of a jump in reported incidences of bullying, even through the anonymous reporting? Or?
Well, you know, it was one of our top 5 categories.
Right.
Because when we looked at it through our school safety committee, it is one of our top 5 things that were reported. Right. I can't remember exactly which where it fit, but it is within the top 5.
I also think in conjunction with your Safe Promise Clubs, we're trying to utilize the leadership framework, where in my opinion this goes back to, you know, you've got to self-regulate and understand who you are as a student, as a human being, in order to respect another. And so K-12, we're trying to utilize that leadership framework to help students understand and lead self first before saying something or doing something. Take responsibility for your actions and understand that you can have a positive impact on others versus a negative impact.
And I think having, you know, with the safety committee looking at some of these issues, what really worries me is that's the first step in the escalation that has caused a lot of the problems we've seen in schools, the violence in schools over the last 5 years. That's where it starts. And that's where I think we've got to address it at a younger age.
Suicide numbers and reaching out.
I saw a report last night on public TV that between ages 19 and 24, 34% of the population of North Carolina had considered suicide. Not seriously, but it's considered it. That comes from, in a lot of cases,
Worth noting, just obviously the 2 years of data that we have are 2 very different years than we've ever experienced in education, as far as understanding COVID and just the general operation of the world. things are different, but it's certainly something that we have to pay attention to and continue to work on in our schools.
From this bullying and all, is it reported to them? Do they get involved in it in any way? Or is that not part of their,
I'll let Jody answer that question. More specifically, generally, they're going to be working with students, testing in our Exceptional Children program for the reevaluations. That's going to be the majority of their work. There may be other instances in which they're pulled into very specific issues, maybe mental health issues, it may be extreme behavior issues. You want to elaborate, Jody?
Sure. They can be consultants, like, for example, if a PLC or on our MTSS school teams, they can be consultants that come in to give different strategies and things that they can do. They are trained in that TFCBT, or that trauma-focused cognitive support, and that's a one-on-one, so they can provide, if a student has been bullied and that trauma has had an effect, then they are trained to be able to provide that one-on-one assistance for a student. So yes, they are around the testing and referral, but they do have background that they can be a consultant when asked to come in to help with that.
are students that's been bullied, are they encouraged to report this to officials?
Absolutely. Youth Mental Health First Aid encourages a trusted adult, say something, anonymous reporting, which we'll be going over that with students again. That encourages to report to a trusted adult. We want them to be able to tell us, and if they don't want to tell it an adult, then they can put it in our Say Something app, or report, or call, or do it on the website.
Yeah, I know over the years I've received calls, somebody say, my child has been bullied, but I don't really want to report it for fear of reprisal.
Mm-hmm. And as a principal, I've gotten those too, Mr. Goins, and so as a principal, I'm going to look out for that student, and I'm going to, figure out, not bring attention, but kind of help that process and see what's going on. So, because I want to be a support to them as well.
So we've got some work to do.
We do. Yes, sir. But feedback's a gift, and now we know it, and so we will continue to work with our district MTSS teams, along with our all of our support teams, to be able to hopefully see a change in these percentages.
I do want to remind the board, prior to this federal grant and these resources, we've come a long way in a short period of time with the work of Jody and this grant, because we have given our teachers many additional tools. We've talked about youth mental health, first aid. 5 years ago, the conversation was, we're seeing behaviors we aren't trained, and we don't know how to handle those behaviors. We're still seeing some of those behaviors today, especially coming out of COVID, but we feel better because we have this youth mental health first aid training. We have added additional counselors to our schools through the grant. We've added a mental health counselor. We're able to do some mental health assessments that we haven't had the opportunity to do in the past. We have come a long way, but we still have additional work to do. And I think in the middle of the grant and in the middle of the work, we've been thrown a major curveball with the work of COVID. So that's just another challenge that we're facing, that the world's facing, but it's one that we have to step up to.
And the grant is in place until?
We have 2 more years.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It's a total of 5?
Yes, ma'am.
5 years. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. Y'all have a great evening.
So this first part of our agenda really focuses on student safety. That's what this is all about. So we've had a number of concerns about traffic at North Surrey High School, and I know that you've been in meetings, we've been in conversation with them, so we'll turn it over to you for this part.
So Lucas, do you have those, if If you'll start with the traffic study of 2014.
It's the next tab.
There's two, I think two that have traffic study on.
No, that's not it.
It says NCDOT North Surrey High School, 11/4/2014. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yep.
It's our second tab. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Dr. Badgett's going to join me with this presentation. I'll kind of start, and I'm going to let her finish. She can back clean up. So, board members, as you know, Highway 89 is a major thoroughfare in Surrey County, and as you know, we have our largest school on Highway 89, and just a mile down the road, we have Gentry Middle School. So, obviously, that has been a congested area for many, many years. In 2014, I requested a traffic study done by the Department of Transportation. They did not perform a field investigation, but they did this traffic study based on data provided by aerial photos, MSTA school traffic calculator, and the division office providing school traffic operations and volumes collected on April the 10th, 2014. I just bring that to your attention to let you know that we've looked into this multiple times with the Department of Transportation. And one thing I will share with you tonight, if you flip back to kind of the aerial illustration, Lucas, that first one. Yeah. So you kind of notice one of the issues we have at North Surrey High School is the fact that we have two entrances, but we have lots of parking congestion. And so yellow buses, student cars, parent drop-off, all of that is an issue. And so in this particular recommendation, they recommended that we put the yellow buses in front of the school. We add a connector between the driveways there in front of the science wing, and then change the entrance there at the west driveway. So obviously, they also recommended that we take traffic behind the school, all in an effort to get volume off the road, and obviously that is a concern. It's always been a concern. How do you get the volume of traffic off of Highway 89? The concern with this recommendation is, especially after school, even before school, we have lots of students that are moving between these buildings and putting vehicular traffic back there. We were concerned that we may have another accident, a student that might get hit by someone back there behind the school. So, point is, it's just a congested area. You can go to the next slide, Lucas. That's a different proposal. They changed the driveway entrance up the hill a little bit to obviously make a little bit more room between the two driveways. And then, so those are really the two recommendations we received from DOT. Most recently, as you know, we've had 3 accidents at North Surrey High School after school, and we've made some changes. First and foremost, I contacted Michael Poe, who is the new District 11 engineer, and requested an additional field study, an on-site traffic study to be completed at North Surrey High School. He agreed to do this. He said it would take about 6 months. So, Lucas, if you'll go to the letter to Sheriff Hyatt. So, on September the 21st, I basically summarized my conversation with Michael Poe in this letter to the sheriff and requested an additional officer at the main gate at North Surrey High School. And we did this in my conversation with Mr. Poe, the new transportation director. Obviously, there's multiple fixes. And I will say this, board members, Highway 89 is due for a modernization. I can't define modernization by DOT terms, nor could Mr. Poe, but it's due to be upgraded land acquisition to begin in 2025 and work to begin in 2028. So Mr. Poe felt confident that we're going to see change on Highway 89 in the next decade. He also felt pretty confident that this had made it through to a point where he didn't think it would be cut from the DOT budget. It had made through a series of steps. I do think in the next decade you're going to see changes to Highway 89. We don't need to wait that decade to see these changes. Going back to this field study, over the next 6 months, the traffic engineers will come and do this on-site field study, and he assured me that it would be an on-site field study. I think a few things that they could potentially do is help with signage. As you know, it's 45 mile an hour during the school day. That drops to 35 during drop-off and pickup. But that's only marked by one very, very small sign with a light that flashes, and one of those lights is covered by some tree limbs with leaves. So it's just really not marked as well as I think it potentially could be. I think there's some other improvements that we could make through signage and through safety lights. The request I made to the sheriff was to add an additional deputy at the main gate. Sheriff Hyatt, Mr. Goins, and myself, Dr. Badgett, we met with Sheriff Hyatt on Friday afternoon at North Surrey High School. Chief Deputy Larry Lowe was a student at North Surrey High School. He also was there along with 3 other officers. Chief Deputy Lowe said that was the site of one of his first accidents as a student at North Surrey High School. He's very familiar with the congestion. Long story short, Lucas, if you'll go to the next, So asked Holly Lyons to come over Friday afternoon. We drafted this communication that went out Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and if you'll flip to the map, Lucas, we added 2 deputies, or an additional deputy at the main gate this morning and this afternoon. So the sheriff in meeting, gracious to provide this additional deputy here with another car. Also added a sign further west of the school from DOT that basically was there. To my understanding, they were going to place it there over the weekend. I know it was certainly there early this morning with another deputy car with flashing lights, so people coming to the school moving east would know that, hey, I need to slow down. Obviously, speed is a factor there, as well as the volume of traffic. So we've added an additional deputy there. Those 2 deputies have to work together. That was one of the concerns, Mr. Goins, that was brought out when we were together is we know it's still going to be congested, still lots of cars. Those deputies have to work together. So this is a reminder that is a 35 mile an hour zone. So those are the things that we've been doing behind the scenes with the Sheriff's Department and with our Department of Transportation. I'd like to invite Dr. Badgett to brief you on what she's been doing with students and some of the different traffic patterns that have been implemented at the high school just in the last few weeks. Dr. Badgett.
Thank you, Ms. Hupfin and Board and Dr. Reeves. We had continuous communication between Dr. Reeves and the senior cabinet to help us regarding our traffic at North Surrey. I did ask Dr. Reeves to see if we could do a staggered bail release, which meant for our student drivers to be dismissed to their cars to get in line and wait. And Officer Kyle and the deputy on NC 89 would work in conjunction together to get them out. Once our students lined up at the east gate, lower gate, then we moved our car rider cars and we weaved them through the parking lot. I received an email from a parent, which I thought was very helpful. She had an aerial and had an idea. I took some of what she shared with me, and I met with our team on our admin team, and I also included Colonel Miles in our discussion because he's helped me
with afternoon traffic on a daily basis. And we routed our traffic, and we're able to weave about 140 cars on our campus. With this new route here, we can get our cars off campus or on to campus by 3:01, and we can get our car riders off campus by 3:15. That's a success. And that's one of our biggest hurdles, was our car rider line backing both intersections, the main gate and the lower gate. In the meantime, I called student meetings. We met with each period with transitional students, those students that drive on campus. We explained that our center lane is not a merge lane, that our center lane is actually a turn lane. We talked about exiting and entering campus safely. Officer Kyle shared her concerns and shared some expectations on her end, and also had Trooper Thompson come on campus, and he was very insightful to our students to help them be able to leave campus on a safe manner. We also created a handout the day we started weaving to explain to parents what we were doing. The first couple of days, it was a learning opportunity, and then after that, we have moved on, and it has been very successful. And we, like I said, we take great pride in getting our people on and off campus in a much more efficient and effective way. We do have, because we are crossing the crosswalk in 1, 2, 3 places, we do have 3 adults that stand there to monitor traffic. We do have one additional release of our Gentry buses come on campus a little bit later, and so when our Gentry students move, we do have adults there to help with that transition. And our students are trained now to use the crosswalk and not to meander through traffic. One of the things that I failed to mention earlier was when we line up with student drivers, where we are weaving, we can't weave until the student drivers get out of the way. So that was part of the request of the stagger release.
So as you can see, we're not going behind the campus. She's utilizing the here the west side of the campus to get more cars off the road. Mm-hmm. It's not perfect, but it's certainly a better situation than we had before, utilizing this back driveway. This is a very narrow lane, and I think we've had a few issues with some of our bigger trucks turning there.
Well, Dr. Reeves, I can turn my dually around in that turnaround. Okay. I've practiced because we had to make sure. We had to test it. I don't know if I could do an activity bus because I gave up those licenses, but I'm pretty sure I could do a bus too. But on a serious note, though, it is like if we get out at 1 o'clock, we do have to be mindful that our cafeteria staff is still in the way. So that does become a little bit of a hiccup that we will need to address on early release days. The hurricane taught us that.
So we just wanted to present, those are the things we've been working on to certainly help Dr. Badgett and our students at North Surrey be safe as they enter and exit campus. Again, it's a challenging issue, very complex. Working closely with the Sheriff's Department, we appreciate their cooperation and their willingness to meet with us on Friday afternoon. I know Mr. Goins and I left encouraged.
Very thankful for the support from the Sheriff's Office.
Sure. One of my duties when I was at North Surrey was to stand out on that front entrance and monitor the kids getting in their cars, and I cringed almost every day watching a parent or a student say, I can't wait anymore, and gunning it out on the 89. Have we, in those 3 accidents, did we see any trends? What do we think was the core cause for the reason those just, because it seemed like they were boom, boom, boom right on top of each other? Was there anything that you saw?
Do you want me to be? So, our first accident, I asked those people that are involved in extracurricular activities that if they have to practice or do a meeting before 4 p.m., not to leave campus because we don't have time. That student left campus early to take a sibling home, wasn't supposed to be leaving campus, was in an accident. That was the day after, or during that time, the deputy had already left the lower gate to go to Gentry to help get the Gentry buses out to get them to North Surrey. And so there was a lag in him moving. The second wreck, the student was leaving campus without permission and asked to go to the restroom, went to his car, and left before the end of the school day. And the third accident was a student that remained on campus after being asked to get in his car and leave. And all 3 times there was not a deputy there to help assist students out off campus.
So the first 2, there's not a lot we could have done about that. The students breaking the rules and leaving early.
Yes, that is correct. And then the third one, if that student would have gotten into his car and left when asked, then.
So we're seeing the accidents are happening when we don't have law enforcement at the gate. That's why this should help.
Yes, sir.
With those. Okay.
Yes, sir. And that's another reason to assist the stagger release, so we will have a deputy there.
As well as the student driver meetings that Dr. Badgett's had outlining those expectations, as well as the state trooper being there to outline general best practices, safety. It's a dangerous highway. We all know that, even for experienced drivers.
When I hear land acquisition and modernization, I hear widening and more lanes, which means more traffic. I don't know that their plan is going to solve our problem.
Yeah.
It may make it worse.
Well, those are his words, not mine. Those are the things he told me in the phone conversation, and there is, I believe this project is on their website, and I believe there's a public comment time period for this project. I've not been able to do the research and understand what that window is, but we certainly want to make people aware of that project in the future, and I'm sure Department of Transportation will be communicating that to us. Mr. Poe was not familiar with this section. I think he's from Caldwell County, so he promised me that he would get up this way and potentially come visit, and we would go look at this stretch of highway. So I look forward to that visit, and I do feel like he will make good on his word for a field study, an on-site visit, and so that if there are other recommendations that their traffic engineers can help us certainly make the school safer, we will listen. We'll do all we can.
And I do think that between 2014 and now, we do have more car riders on campus. We even have more car riders this year than even pre-COVID. So I think that's neat.
That's a good statement.
Be noted.
And I think it's interesting. How many students we have at North Surrey?
864.
How many buses do we have?
Well, we have 3 at North Surrey. We have 5 at Gentry and 4 at Meadowview, or vice versa. 5
So the
and 4.
vast majority of our kids are driving cars or being picked up by their parents.
Our buses are full, yes, sir.
So that adds more, like you said, more cars. But I think a key to it is when school's out, they need to leave. When there's a deputy there, not wait. And I saw it every day. If you wait, there's nobody there to control the traffic to help you out. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Dr. Badgett, thank you to you and also to your staff who are taking on some extra responsibilities there. Thank you. Yep. Superintendent report.
First of all, I want to say thank you again to Dr. Badgett and her staff. We had a very successful Surrey County Schools Educational Foundation golf tournament. I appreciate all the volunteers that gave of their time to help Ashley Mills and the Education Foundation Board. We raised over $41,000. That was a record tournament. Appreciate all of the business sponsors and the large number of golfers that we had at Pilot Knob Park. The golf course was in great shape, and even though there was a little rain that day, it did not hinder that tournament. So thank you to everyone that participated in the golf tournament. I appreciate the board attending our Poultry Lab ribbon cutting at Surrey Central High School. what a great day, great morning, especially for our FFA students. Obviously, you could see their leadership potential, and certainly glad that we can partner with Wayne Farms and open up that facility. That is based on what Matthew Wooten said, there's no farm that has a better setup than what we have at Surrey Central. And in talking to a couple of professors, they're even NC-A&T and NC State may not have poultry labs that are in that kind of condition. So very proud that we could offer that to our students. And with that, we'll continue in the ag celebration, but Ag Adventures Day for our second graders was a big hit last week. As you could see, that was a big undertaking. All Surrey County School second graders spent the majority of the day there, and our FFA students led that from our three high schools. Appreciate Mr. Neil Atkins, Crystal Folger Hawks, and the entire committee that helped with that day. It was phenomenal, really great for our community. And I think so many students were able to see where things come from, which is a part of that day. And yesterday, or I think this week, is Custodian Appreciation Week. We appreciate our custodians.
So Sunday was the official appreciation day, and this whole week the schools are doing specific things for their custodians.
And as you know, our custodians have a difficult job, take great pride in our schools, and I appreciate all they do. It's custodians it's been a hard job for our principals to fill, and we certainly appreciate their hard work and appreciate all that they do to maintain a safe building, a clean space for our students. Excited that later this month, we're going to be meeting with representatives from Lees-McRae. We have had a very successful partnership with Lees-McRae and Surrey Community College through the years, and we're putting together a report, and I would love to share that with the board, maybe at the November meeting, of just the number of people that have been impacted by the Lees-McRae program. And 2-3 weeks ago, I had the opportunity to meet with the president and really share that story of what an impact that program's had. When we think about the shortage of teachers across the country, we're blessed to have that program right here in our backyard at Surrey Community College, because we have anecdotal stories of educator after educator after educator that's in education, that's in our school system because they could do it right here at home, right here on the Surrey Community College campus through Lees-McRae. It has been powerful for our schools, and we have great people coming out of the program. So I look forward to sharing that result or that report with the board. We are meeting with them later here in the month. Lots of good things happening. This is October is Principal Appreciation Month. Appreciate the principals that are here with us tonight. Thank you for all you do for our students. All the things that are seen, but really the things that are not seen. I appreciate that. I know how hard the job is. And I know especially in today's world with the employee shortages that all industries are facing, our principals do a great job managing our schools, but making them a great place to work. And I don't think you can ever overlook the culture of a school and the leadership of a principal in making that building inviting, warm, welcoming, and a place where people want to go to work and want to call home and want to take pride in. So thank you to all of our principals for their hard work, their leadership, both in instruction and with our people. Makes a difference. That concludes my report.
Okay, thank you very much. At this time, we will consider the consent agenda.
I would like to make a motion that we approve the consent agenda with a couple of revisions. The first one is an editorial revision to the minutes for our August meetings to make sure that we can clean up a few administrative things. Nothing material, but we need to have the ability to do that. We do need to amend the personnel report for one additional student transfer that was added today. And I'm sorry, that's the student transfer report. And we want to amend the personnel report to include extending the contracts of our superintendent and our 2 assistant superintendents for 1 additional year through June 30th, 2026.
Okay, thank you very much for that motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Goins. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. Absolutely. Dr. Reeves, to your point, you've mentioned custodian, our appreciation for them, and also in addition to our wanting to recognize our principals, it is National Principals Month, so I have a proclamation here for them. Whereas each year the month of October is designated National Principals Month in recognition of principals for their steadfast commitment to ensuring that every child receives a quality education, and whereas principals are responsible for the day-to-day operation of their schools, which includes leading the instructional program, managing educational initiatives, and building relationships with students, teachers, parents, and community partners to achieve excellence. And whereas principals work diligently to establish a positive culture and climate in their schools and provide a supportive and safe school environment where students learn, grow, and lead. And whereas we are very proud of our principals and sincerely appreciate their ongoing efforts to help students design their dreams and grow as leaders in Surry County schools, and also to promote the importance and value of public school education in our community. Now therefore be it resolved that the Surry County Schools Board of Education is pleased to join other boards of education across the United States in proclaiming October 2022 as National Principals Month, and encourages, this is for everybody at home, and encourages the citizens of Surry County to join in the celebration of National Principals Month by thanking all school administrators for the care and concern they show for our children. So, again, what that all says is to our principals, y'all spend a lot of time at our schools, and it does not go unnoticed. So thank you for all the many hats that you wear in supporting our schools and our communities. Thank you. With that, I think we have a principal from Mountain Park here who is next on our agenda.
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
I've come to ask permission to place a memorial bench for Miss Teresa Reese on the school grounds there at Mountain Park. I've looked into it and started that process, and we have PTO and as well as staff members that are willing to help purchase that, but needed to get permission before we did that.
Do you have any indication of where it might go on campus?
The plan is to go where the playground will end up going.
Okay.
Over towards the water tower.
Okay. Got it. Wonderful.
I commend you on this effort. I make a motion to approve it.
Thank you, Mr. Goins.
Thank you, Mr. Goins.
We have a second from Mrs. Atkinson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Scott, we say thank you for doing that, and we also want to thank your community
Yes,
for
ma'am.
remembering our teacher in that way.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing 3 or 4 jobs or a lifestyle. I go over one time as a principal, I go back as a custodian. I go back.
Speaking of the culture in a community, right there it is in Mountain Park.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, happy to do it. It's a fun job. Take a break off from being principal and got a promotion to be a custodian there for a little bit.
Thank you for
Thank
being
you.
here this evening. Next, we want to talk about our Esser funding proposed projects. Mr. Drawn?
And while he's coming up, I'll just let
Yeah.
everyone know that I met with Robert, Dr. Reeves, Audra, I think that was the entire group, right? And we talked about these funds. We've been talking about these for a year and a half, funds that we received from Esser to help with our HVAC, with our air quality, with our energy efficiency, and just making our schools a healthier place for our students to go. So the list that Robert will talk about today is, we think somewhere we've got about $2 million out of that money or set aside to do these things. And based or depending on the bid sizes, because some of these are going to have to be bid and we don't know exactly what they'll be, We think it's somewhere between 1.5 and $2 million to get these done. The benefit of not only doing this to improve our quality, air changeovers and other things in the schools is we're pretty sure, oh, I almost forgot, Mrs. Atkinson was in the meeting too, is that we're gonna make our schools more energy efficient because we're putting equipment in now that is in some cases 20, 30, 40 years newer, and also building some redundancy and backup in some of our pumps we're talking about that we can replace and work on them quicker. So with that, I think it's a good move, and I think we're heading in the right direction, and I'll let Robert talk about the specifics.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Badgett. I'll apologize to begin with. I'm having some pretty serious allergy problems going on, so I may get into a coughing spell here, but I'm gonna try to get through this. My HVAC staff and I were given the task to look into ways that we could spend this Esser money, and after talking with them and looking at the conditions across our district, we felt like that the best approach for us was to look at the long-range improvements that we could make in equipment for the long run. So you all know the situations that we have faced in the last 5 years with chiller failures and things such as that. So one of the things that we felt like would be to continue that, to replace these chillers that were installed in the 90s up through 2000. So you can see on the diagram, we're recommending somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 million to go toward replacing chillers at the schools that you see listed. And beside of that, I put the years that they were put into service. So those are all still, original to the time frame that they were installed at that school. Can you pull up the PowerPoint, please? I assume everyone has this document.
We
Okay.
have that.
I just wanted to we may go back and forth if you can do that, Lucas. Yes.
It is.
But the last 3 chiller failures that we have had were all the same issue, and that was the chiller barrel rusted out and caused the leaking out of the refrigerant. So we felt like that based on the ages and the conditions of these, that we would soon be facing most likely the same type scenario on many of these chillers that you see listed. So you can see here, that's the picture I wanted right there. So you can see these chiller barrels are insulated with a type product that, and as it works, it condensates. So over time, it just breaks down the metal and rusts it, and then you can see the droplet as well as a small stream here of the refrigerant leaking out. So we just felt like this was probably the top of our list as far as the ways that we could spend this money to make great improvements, and also, as Mr. Badgett noted, improve the efficiency of these chillers. Because if you'll go back, Lucas, please, to the beginning. So you can see this is a chiller similar to what we just replaced at Shoals Elementary. Pretty much the same thing. And the next picture shows one at Copeland. So go to the last picture. I just want you to see how much smaller and more compact technology has come, and along with the energy efficiency that this unit is going to provide for the school. That's the unit at Shoals Elementary. Another key in our decision for this was in 2010, the EPA started the process of doing away with R22 refrigerant due to the ozone layer and climate change and global warming and all that stuff. So the majority of our equipment that we have in our district utilizes R22 refrigerant. In the last 3 years, it has skyrocketed in cost. I think the last we bought was about 3 or 4 years ago, and it was somewhere in the neighborhood of $600 to $700 a jug. And today, if you can even find it, you're looking at probably $1,400 to $1,600 a jug. So that was another major thing for us to go this way, because we can save the district just huge amounts of money in the long run by getting away from these units that have the R22 refrigerant, especially if it's going to be very hard to find. And a chiller that size can take as many as 10 jugs, so you can imagine to charge that, if we were to lose it all because of the leaking out of a chiller barrel or some other failure, you could spend $10,000, $15,000 just charging it back to try to get through. So, boiler replacements. We felt like that was probably, again, another great place to make improvements. We have 3 especially that are back constructed and built back in the 70s and on back. This actually is the boiler for Flat Rock Elementary's B building, which houses the cafeteria, kitchen, and a few classrooms. This was an old coal-fired boiler that has been converted over to fuel oil. If you'll go to the next picture, this is a front view, so you can see it looks like a boiler that you've seen in probably some movies. The next picture, Lucas, that is the inside of it, so that tells you how old this boiler is. It still has the fire brick lining and stuff instead of the newer styles are tubed and have water inside the tubes running through the firebox. Also, this is the original electric boiler at Gentry Middle School. So this is 1975 model, very inefficient. We felt like it would be a good thing to replace that with a hot water based boiler with now that we have natural gas capabilities at Gentry. We could save the district thousands upon thousands of dollars in the future by getting rid of this. When I tried to find the age of this boiler and I put it in, it came up as history, that type stuff when you're searching for it. Yeah, so that tells you how old it is, and I don't think the company even exists anymore. It was Dewey, I can't remember the last part of it. It was Dewey something was the manufacturer, but that is the boiler at Copeland Elementary School in the gym, and also serves the Graham building. So we felt like that was another. It was 1977 was when that boiler was manufactured and installed. And so that's your 3 boilers that we felt like would be a great way to spend the money to replace those. The next area we thought would be good, and again, these are R22 units, just keep that in mind as we go through these systems. But all of our DX split systems that serve our office areas, and you can see in the list, Cedar Ridge, Central Middle, Flat Rock, Shoals, Westfield, all of those are original to the school, other than in 2019 we had to replace one of the ones at Shoals Elementary. So that is the before picture, and that is the air handler for that unit. And this is the new one that was put in 2019, as well as the new air handler unit. So lots of ways to make improvements in efficiency, as well as just controlling humidity, just total comfort, just a healthy environment for the school. So we also have had lots of trouble with the kitchen package unit that serves the kitchen at Flat Rock Elementary. So we felt like, hey, let's get rid of it and go back with something sized more for today's needs in their kitchen. The problem with this one is it just can't overcome the amount of heat that is produced in the kitchen. So those ladies are pretty much miserable, in the late spring and early fall. So we felt like, and it is pretty much deteriorating. The cabinet around it you can see, is rusting out. And a lot of these, it's just extremely hard to find any parts for them anymore. They're so old. And again, that's an R22 unit. So one of the things that, another thing that we talked about was our hot water and chill water pumps that serve our schools. A lot of those are original to the school or have already been rebuilt and reconditioned in the past. So we felt like that it would be a good idea to either refurbish these or potentially buy some new ones, so that we would have a backup pump assembly in the event that one of them was to go down. Then we would have a spare on hand to be able to quickly change that out and get that school back up to either heating or cooling. So there are lots of these in our district that need attention. I wish we could zoom up to some of them, but some of them are in pretty bad shape. They're already leaking. We average about 4 or 5 a year, having to send them to Greensboro and have them rebuilt. And that can cost anywhere from $500 to $1,500, just depending on the size and capacity of that. So there'll be a lot of these. Some schools have 2, some have 4. Some alternate, some don't. So if you lose one of these, you can potentially, not have heat or air for up to a week or 2 till we can get it rebuilt. So that's just that's just showing different scenarios.
And Robert, the plan on those was to buy new ones for these schools and then rebuild some of the best old ones to have as backup if we have issues.
That's what we would like to do, yes, sir.
And the new ones cost how much?
$2,000 to $5,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
And we won't need to buy new ones for every single school, because some will interchange, and we could, just like Shoals, Westfield, and Cedar Ridge, the assemblies probably would interchange at those 3 schools, because they're pretty much prototype schools. They were all built right there at the same time and same design. So, but some of the others, it'd just be good to have a backup one on site, ready to go. So, building automation, Central Middle, Pilot Mountain Middle, Pilot Mountain Elementary, all have building automation, and building automation allows us to utilize the internet in order to check a school's mechanical operation. We can look at, is the boilers running, or is the chiller running, is the fans running. We had not upgraded that software through Allerton in several years, so we reached out to those guys and said, hey, what do we need to do? There were we had missed several upgrades over the years. So in order to bring all that up was around $50,000. And so we have been working through IT and Hoffman to get those upgrades in place. So hopefully in the near future, we'll have all of that in place and back up and running. Can you go to the pictures on that? So this is our program, And the good thing about this is the HVAC technicians can access this at any school computer. So if they get a call that one of the schools is not functioning properly and they're at Copeland, we'll just say, they can go to the any computer and pull this up, and they can check. Go ahead and switch. They can go and find the area that's been sent in that's not working. Go ahead. And they can check and see, is the fan running? What's the water temperature, or the hot water temperature, or chill water temperature? Go ahead, Lucas. They can check the boilers, see that they're running. Same thing, temperatures, pumps running, those kind of things. So this is a big asset to our department, especially to the technicians, because it kind of gives them a leg up and a heads up on what they need to do before they get there. So it could be that they can address it and fix it without even going to the site, or it may give them something to, some insight into, hey, I need to, pick up this at the shop, or go by and pick this up. This is a big one that we have been battling since about 2015, we'll say, and this is at Pilot Mountain Elementary School. The insulation that's on the chill water piping is failing, and you can see here in this picture where it condensates so much that it's actually saturating the insulation, and that's starting to mildew. That also leaks and drips off onto the ceiling tiles. If you can go to the next picture. And this is the kind of mess that we have in almost every classroom in the lower, I call it the 70s building. It's the lower building that houses pre-K, second grade, third. It may be, I'm not sure what all different grade levels is in that building, but it's the 70s era building. So we are recommending that we take some of these funds and completely re-insulate all of the chill water piping in that school building in order to eliminate this problem and improve. Pneumatic controls, all of our schools that don't have building automation that I recently mentioned have pneumatic controls, which are air controls that run all of our thermostats, actuators, and that type of stuff. So each mechanical room has an air compressor, as well as the box up on the wall that says Johnson Controls is an air dryer. And what that does is it dries the air that is produced by the air compressor and sent out through the schools to our thermostats and things to make sure that it has no moisture in it, because moisture and thermostats don't work well together. So the majority of these are original, so we felt like it would be good to go in and do some upgrades to these and replace some of these older air dryers with the newer style that does a lot better job. It'll say that's the newer style in that picture. So White Plains Elementary has about 5 air handlers up in the main mezzanine that serves art and music, the gymnasium, the hallways, kitchen and cafeteria. Those are pretty much obsolete when you go to start looking for parts. They're in the 1987, 88 era. So we had to replace one a few years ago at a cost of $21,000 to the district. I think there's a picture of it. If you keep going. One more, I think. Okay, go back. I'm sorry. One more. If you look where the blue bucket is, the blue trash can is sitting, that is the new air handler assembly that we had to replace a few years ago. Go back one, Lucas. Okay, I thought I had a different picture, but But you can see, all these air handlers, are original to the school, and as I said, parts are becoming very difficult to get for them. We actually had one that was in the cafeteria that the drain pan rusted out and it started leaking out into the floor, so we had to pull it out. And we couldn't find a factory drain pan for it, so we had to go to have one fabricated specially for it. And it took about a week to complete that task, just changing something as simple as a drain pan, which carries the condensate away and out of, from the coil. So these are just some recommendations that we felt like would be beneficial to the district, would help in the long run, would improve energy efficiency, just total, we just felt like these things would improve the overall comfort of our staff and students. So I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I think one of the reasons this is critical now, we've got until, what do we decide, the end of 23 to have spent the money, but some of these chiller replacements are going to take 9 to 12 months to get. So if
Right
we
now,
don't get on it now,
right now the lead time on a chiller or a boiler is pushing a year.
so we have to get them on order now.
So we,
be able to get 'em
if we're
in.
going to do this, we need to be pressing forward, full throttle. So
How many buildings do we have with natural gas campuses?
Meadowview, Rockford, Dobson, Central Middle, Surrey Central, my department, transportation, soon to be Franklin and North Surrey. So eight facilities.
That's great. See that making quite a difference in the future as far as the expense.
It has been unbelievable how much improvement it has been at the schools that we have converted to natural gas as far as calls, maintenance issues and calls. Natural gas just burns so much cleaner. You have less burner issues, downtime. We just do the routine service every summer, and they have ran like a top.
Do we have any others that's in the pipeline, coming down the pipeline? Any other schools?
Not at this time. There has been some discussion in the Copeland area that potentially in the years to come, they may be an opportunity to get some natural gas in that company, in that area. But that's just long-range planning,
Spread out, somebody said it'd be hard, it'd take a long time to get it to all of them.
Yeah.
But we will have partial at Gentry, like you'd said, right, as it's going to North Surrey, it's passing the campus, so. we can
Going
do
right
some-
by.
We can have some partial there if we need.
Absolutely.
So is the request this evening to approve the plan, and then when they're actually, actual order placed for each piece of equipment, we then approve that particular purchase as well?
Yeah, a lot of
Is that
these,
how the
a lot of
process
these
will work here?
projects.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
okay,
A lot of these projects, I will reach out to plant operations for assistance on the design
From the
and stuff,
state.
especially the boilers, the chillers.
yes,
A lot of this we can just do ourselves in-house,
okay,
just asking for quotes, from vendors.
yes, and for some of the smaller
But
projects.
we would always bring those back to you for approval.
Okay, got it.
So getting those on order and making sure that but yeah, this allows us to start the process to request bids and price it to get it all. Yeah. I make a motion that we approve, the plan as Robert has presented it, and I wanna thank, cause I was one of the ones that gave him the task to send our staff out, because we had a pretty hefty cost from a company to come in and just to do this assessment. So his team was able to help us save that money, which we now can use to put toward equipment that we need. So thank you for that, and appreciate it, and that's my motion that we approve the plan.
Mr. Badgett, thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. Second from Mrs. Atkinson. All in favor? Okay.
Thank you
very
very much.
much.
we will go hard at work.
Okay. East Surrey High School Athletic Equipment Building. I wondered if Mr. Drawn was going to stay with you.
I don't know how I can just come behind him and do this, because that was like a monumental feat. I'm like, this is not even half that. Thank you so much for having us this evening. Myself and Mr. Fleming are here on behalf of East Surrey High School to propose and seek approval to basically replace one of our outbuildings that are located at the stadium. So if you were to walk in the stadium and look at concessions on the right-hand side, you would notice that there is a red wooden shed, we can call it. It's about a 10 by 12 building, 12 feet high. It is rotting. The siding is rotting, and it's just not large enough to really contain the equipment that our athletic teams have. So our boosters have done a tremendous job in finding a generous donor. And that would be North Edge Steel, who is owned by one of our parents. And they are willing to donate a building slightly larger than the one that is already there. The dimensions for that is 24 by 20, 12 feet high. In looking at those dimensions and talking with Mr. Drone, that would not impede on any of the entrances to the stadium. So right behind concessions, there's actually a gated entrance for emergency vehicles, maintenance vehicles, whatnot, that this building would not impede on that space. It would just be slightly larger than the one that is there. However, it does require a concrete pad, so that is a little bit different than the one that already exists because it has just a wooden subfloor within that building itself. In talking with Mr. Drone, we would love to partner with him, and roughly the cost for that would be between $1,000 to $1,200. And so this would be a really reasonable cost for either our athletic department or perhaps a boosters project on top of that to help with the costs and offset that. Overall, the building would be a tremendous addition to our stadium. It would definitely be more aesthetically pleasing, and it would also definitely, I think, help manage some of the equipment and some of the extra stuff that we have laying around the stadium and really just clean it up a little bit. The only catch to this is that North Edge is requesting that we put that the building was donated by them on the building itself. Any questions?
Does the existing building right now acknowledge
Yes, it does.
its donor
Yes.
right now? And
Yes,
is
it
that
does.
donor aware?
It's on loan. We're actually going to keep that building, and we
Okay.
are just going to move it to another location. And it's actually going to, the siding on it, Mr. Rogers' class, I think, is going to work on replacing that siding and getting it back up in par. So it will still serve the athletic department. It will be placed on the other side of the field house.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it. In a flat spot
Yes.
over there, you'll have a
That's
place
correct.
to place
Big
it.
area of the parking and all that for
Yes.
practice fields.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
This was gonna go in that corner
Correct.
right
yes.
there, right?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay. What does your timeline look like?
I think they're ready to move pretty quickly, but that will, of course, depend on how quickly we can get the slab set up. That we'll be working with the maintenance department on that. So I know I called him. I was texting him, letting him know kind of what our thoughts were and trying to get, pick his brain a little bit. So of course we'll be at the mercy of the maintenance department. They're stellar. They're rock stars. So however long that takes, we're certainly willing to work with them. And I think that our donor is willing to work with us as well.
Okay.
Yep.
Wonderful.
You've answered my only question because that's a standard cookie cutter design
Mm-hmm.
by Wayne Moore, so you dressed the size 24 by 20.
Yeah, and it will actually have a roll-up door also, which is a benefit. Right now, we just have the doors that open and then a door on the side of the building as well. So there'll be multiple entry points. They'll be able to store a lot of different pieces of equipment in there.
As of right now, we have just in that one building our football equipment and some soccer equipment. That doesn't include our track equipment, so on and so forth, with the hurdles and such. So we're actually having to use locker space potentially in shower areas to house some of these pads and the hurdles, of course. So if we can get those transferred out, it'll definitely give us a lot more space in there in our field house area.
Okay.
What are you, and I know you're gonna move the smaller building, is it still gonna give you storage for?
Yeah, we can use it for any of those kind of stuff.
Oh,
where
okay.
where if, football needs to house, you know, shoulder pads, you
Right.
know, just different stuff like that, or if people we wanted to use, like if band needed stuff, cause I know they practice on that side.
Yeah.
We can potentially house that with more, space on that side.
Right. That's great, 'cause you have some options there.
Correct, yeah.
I'm guessing it's gonna be red.
I don't know. I've been trying to talk them into maybe a different color
Yeah,
with
The-
red accents, of course.
The
I would
company
love to
color's
see a
blue.
black building that's nice, stays nice and clean and crisp all the time, requires little maintenance, but red accents to go along with it. I think it would be striking. Yes,
The black sucks up heat. So.
yes
Yeah,
it
that's-
does. Yes,
That's another issue on
it's
that.
very true.
He said the gray, anything they were willing to work with us and do whatever.
Good.
Still, yeah.
Put pushing on the middling.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion for approval to accept and to allow the building on campus? I think that's what we're looking for.
Yes,
Did I
ma'am.
state that appropriately? Okay.
Yes,
We have a motion from Mrs. Atkinson. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Mr. Goins. All those in favor? Perfect. Thank you very much, and we also want to thank North Edge Steel for their donation.
Thank you so much.
Now, Mr. John, you get to come back up. High school gym floor abatements.
Part of the SCIF funding was to, and I think the board approved for us to move forward with, several different projects, and one of those is the replacement of the, flooring in all three of our field house gymnasiums. So part of that, the first phase of that is to remove the floor tile and mastic, before we can move forward with a different product. So I've worked with DeWitt Whitting. He is our best asbestos management consultant, and he has helped me receive bids for the removal of that at our three different high schools. So you can see the bid tabulations on the screen. This one is East Surrey High School. There is also North Surrey and Surrey Central. So the highlighted yellow figure on the lower left-hand corner is the low bid provided by Abatemaster. Abatemaster has done lots of asbestos removals for us, especially in the phase one renovations. So I'm here to ask for the board's approval to accept the low bids at the three different sites by Abatemaster. I'll be happy to answer any questions related to the bid tab or anything that you may have.
Their timeline?
The timeline is these abatements will take place during the Christmas break.
Okay, I'll be able to do all three during that time frame.
Yes, ma'am, that's the plan.
Okay. Any other questions?
And like you said, the funding came from the one-time grant we got from the state for athletic facilities this year. And we worked
Okay.
with the schools to figure out what was their priority. And all three of the field houses were top of their list.
Top of their list, and then they have plans as well for their next phase. Yep, for the next phase of that. At that, do we have those bids, or is that a next step once now that we've got this done, then we come back and do what goes next?
The new floors or?
The new, for the new flooring.
So the pricing on that flooring, you've received those. I think we're good to go. That's already been approved. No?
No, we haven't made a final decision on the three different materials and any additional type things that go along with that.
I think
This is
Lines,
the strength,
logos.
that's it, that's what I remember from the other day,
Yeah.
we had said, okay,
we met and decided we allowed the schools to say which one they would like as a new covering.
yep,
And we're still looking at those.
okay. So we wanna approve this tonight, and then as soon as we can, then we'll look at, okay, next step. Now, once we
Yes,
got
ma'am.
this done, then we'll go the next step. Okay.
Make a motion.
We have a motion from Mr. Goins. Second from Mr. Badgett. All those in favor? Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for all your work. Budget from Mrs. Chilton. Welcome.
Thank you. So tonight you have the 22-23 budget. I'm just going to go over some highlights, overview. The total budget is around $104 million. 75% of the total budget is personnel costs. 71% of the total budget is geared toward instructional needs. If you look at each fund, our state public school fund, which are the monies we get directly from DPI for our in-state funds, 96% of state funding is going toward personnel costs. So we're trying to maximize as much as we can to pay for people. 89% of state funding is going toward instructional costs, and that includes your instructional staff salaries, supplies, materials, workshops, that kind of thing. Our local current expense, this would be the funding that we get from the county. We are currently at $1,260 per student. 44% of our local current expense fund is personnel. Local funding is usually more toward operational costs. So we also have the percentage going toward instructional needs is lower, being at 38%. Our federal grants fund is 73% personnel costs and 80% instructional costs. And our federal funds, that will include our Esser funding. Capital outlay, that would be the funding that we get from the county commissioners towards buildings, improvements. So we are currently receiving $115 per student. And then any special projects that they approve, that makes up the capital outlay fund as well. The last fund I'm going to talk about is the other special revenue fund. This fund is made up of mostly local grants that we receive, so it's more restricted in nature. You have pre-K, Jody's School Climate Grant, some of those type things are running through there. 79% of that fund is instructional and 49% is personnel costs. That's just a high-level overview. If you have any questions.
So we need to approve this as our final budget resolution?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't see anything on there that's a surprise to me. About any other members?
No.
I'll make a motion that we approve this as our final budget resolution for 22-23.
Okay. We have a motion from Mr. Badgett. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Goins. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Okay. Thank you very much. Our next section here, actually there is no called action for a motion right now. These are policies for you to acknowledge. And so there are quite a number of, and this isn't all that we looked at. There are some that needed a little bit more to them. So these are your policies to review that will sit for 30 days. You can see that Ms. Freeman has provided here the link to what the recommendation is from the state association and then what the current policy says. Within this, there is a new 3,000 that's technology That's kind of a combination of what is already existing in the 10,000s of our technology. So we are looking to consolidate those pieces, but we do want to go ahead and present to you that 3,000 number. I don't know that there were any, I was going through my notes to see if there were any to highlight specifically to take a look at that needed additional conversation or anything to highlight specific. Okay, so if you will take those to review, I will mention in our last meeting, we heard from Mrs. Parks and Child Nutrition about looking at some of the costs that they are experiencing right now with supply, and also with our parents paying for school, paying for lunches for the first time since the pandemic. And so we really are looking at the practices. I want to commend Mrs. Parks and the team and also our principals for keeping an eye on that. We are looking at some ways with Ms. Lyons to really promote, to make parents more aware of that. There are a couple of things that have occurred. Since the pandemic, there is a great app that you can pay online, but the fee structure has changed just a little bit when you do it that way. So you can, for parents, they need to know that they can send money directly to the school. It can be applied to your child's account, and then you can still track that account through the app. You can also set the notification for when the balance gets low, so that you can also go online and then check it. So
Even if you don't use the app, put your money
in the app, you can still use that, and it's a great tool because it will send you a text message, and it will also send you an email when it gets low. And I think we're trying to do more to really make parents aware of that as a tool and a resource to help us manage through this process.
Is there any fee to use the app? Like sometimes there's a processing fee if you put money in it.
It's $1.95 up to $100. Pre-pandemic, it was $1.95 no matter what amount you put. After $100, it's a 3% fee to what you add on to it. So it can $1.95 you when you're, especially if you're paying for multiple children.
Right. And if you can't afford to put a lot on it each time.
Each time, exactly.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it. So that's why we want to mention it as a resource to, you can send the money to school. So, but that did come up as a question in our last board meeting of considering a policy change. The committee held on making any type of policy or practice change at this time, but that is something we want to continue to monitor with child nutrition. So.
It's basically a meal.
I do want to mention
It
the
is.
app itself is free. You can set a balance alert.
Yes.
You can look at your child's balance, but you don't have to add money. The expense comes when you add the money. But,
Yeah.
You can sign up for free.
Yep.
So just want parents to know that in case they just don't want to pay those fees. But the app itself is free, and you can set alerts and use it just to look at what your child's doing.
And can they download that app at our website, or do you have to go somewhere else to get it?
No, you can download it from our website, and it is K-12 Payment Center is what it is when you're on our website. So, Mrs. Parks, thank you. Oh, I use it quite regularly. It's just, can I add the money before the child orders lots of extras in one day? That's my only catch. It's coming, yes. That's it, exactly. So, but anyway, back to these references, you can see what the recommended changes are on all of these for acceptance. Any questions at this time or comments?
If you have 4 or 5 grandkids at every school, you get a discount.
Exactly, yes. And that did come up a lot. Sometimes you'll have grandparents send extra money for an extra cookie or ice cream on their birthday. So you can certainly take advantage of that with all of your grandkids. There you go. There you go.
I'll look into that.
Please do, please do. So those are the policies, and we'll go over those next month. Next, we have school improvement plans.
Board, I come to you tonight for approval of our 22-23 school improvement plans. Each school
Principal admin team worked with their school improvement team to write goals to improve academic outcomes, the implementation of our multi-tiered system of support, our leadership framework. These are working, living, breathing documents. We've downloaded a report for you so you have something to look at for all in, but they do change through the year as we update action steps, as they complete items, as they add their school improvement team agendas. We work on them as we meet with the leadership team monthly. Each plan is specific to each school and their needs and what they need to accomplish at their school. They have been voted on by their staff members, and then I would ask for your approval tonight.
And keep in mind there are parents on it.
Parents, yes, ma'am.
There are also parents
Should be
on school
parents.
improvement teams.
Yes.
They're helping with these goals.
When were the plans approved? Have they been, each school year are they looked at to
Yes.
approve at the beginning of the year?
So annually, we have to have them approved by their staff, and then I bring them to you. And then if there's any questions, we can take them back to that, so.
Okay. So if there's been a staff change on some of these where it says who it was originally assigned to.
It keeps a running record on all of that.
On
in
all
NC
of
Star.
that?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, and I see the one that I had a question about,
Okay.
we approved in personnel
Okay.
this evening, so
Okay.
it will be updated, never
Yes.
mind. I've just
Okay.
answered my own,
Okay.
my question that I had earlier.
Okay.
Okay,
They can go in and edit their staff member, their process manager. They have that full control.
perfect. Any questions about these or comments?
It's a
Okay.
great guideline for the schools to see where
Yep.
they're at and how they're gonna get to where they wanna be.
It is. I really appreciate our principals and our teams getting these ready. It's always good to have good goals and know what we need to work toward.
Okay.
It takes a lot of work to get them done, and that's very obvious in looking at how detailed they are.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, as you
Yes.
said, thank you to everybody involved in making those.
Board members, I would encourage you as we prepare for board visits, this is a great place to start. As obviously, you know, when the principal does the presentation, you may see students, you may see teachers, but ultimately you'll be able to understand what are their goals this academic school year, and more times than not, that will be discussed during your board visit, and then you'll see evidence of that in the classroom. So it's a great guide.
Okay. Do we have a motion to the point that we just made, these have been voted on by the schools? Do we have a motion for us to approve their plans?
Make that motion.
Motion from Mrs. Atkinson. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Goins. All those in favor? Okay. Thank you. Thank you to all the parents and staff members who are involved in that. And the New Hope Foundation. Mr. Gillespie, come out from behind the camera. Yes.
Board members, I am excited to come to you tonight with a surprise that I did not anticipate actually happening, and it happened. So we were funded by E-rates, ECF, the Emergency Connectivity Funding, which is a pandemic response through the federal government, for round 3 funding for Chromebooks in the sum of $1,011,554.47. That'll buy us an additional 2,562 Chromebooks, which will take our Chromebooks that we currently have and bring all of them up to current, not expired. Chromebooks get to an end of life and they no longer get support, and that will move all of our Chromebooks up to current modern device, and that will help us to get rid of the old devices that we have in stock. And so should, worst case scenario, we ever go back into remote learning, all of our students would be able to take home a modern, current, supported device. And so what I'm coming to you today, requesting funding for is the New Hope Foundation is our E-rate consultant. You may have heard that, or John Hughes is the guy that we work with specifically on that. And so I am just looking for approval for their consultancy fee. They handle all the back end stuff and all the communications and all of the paperwork and things like that on our behalf, and manage that, which is a tremendous workload.
Would we be making that payment if we were not successful with the grant?
We would
So
not.
We
It's
would not. So this comes based out of the grant
success
fees itself.
Yep.
So part of the grant goes towards the consultancy fee,
That's correct.
and then the rest of it will be spent on replacing all of the Chromebooks.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. And what does the plan look like to replace all of the Chromebooks? Like,
So that's a great question. So, and hats off to my staff who have really stepped up this summer. We actually were awarded ECF Round 1 funding, which allowed us to replace about 5,000 Chromebooks that were in our fleet that were at end of life and no longer receiving updates from Google. And so we had those. We are currently working through a number of Esser funded Chromebooks to get those out. We've distributed, and what that means is we take delivery of those Chromebooks. We have to tag them. We record asset numbers. We get all that into the system. We determine where the needs are, and then it's a replacement. So we take the old Chromebooks out and put the new Chromebooks in. And so that happened over the summer, and my team moved over 5,000 Chromebooks this summer alone. It was sort of a mixed bag of like, hey guys, guess what we just got? When I had to tell them that we were just awarded funding for another 2,500 Chromebooks, and it was sort of like, yay. But it is good for us overall. That gets all of our devices up into current standards, and so I'm excited about that.
so as we talk about a one-to-one initiative, we're talking about 7,000 Chromebooks. So while students may not have it at home, personal possession, they do have all of the access in all
That's
of the
correct.
classrooms.
That's correct.
At school.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you. So you need motion for approval to pay the consultancy fee
That is correct.
to the firm.
That's right.
Okay.
Now, is this the same, I know you said we got round 1 before. As far as how it's administered and how it's managed, all that, is this basically the same?
It's very interesting, and I'm just really wrapping my head around E-rate right now. And so it is part of the E-rate program. E-rate typically does not let you buy devices for like students and staff. So this was a really an awesome surprise when as part of federal funding, this became an option for us. This sort of one-time funding source for devices became a reality. So we were very excited, and lots of school districts have taken advantage of that.
So go ahead.
I did a quick calculation based on the $50,000 consultant fee. We could have bought 123. Now we're getting 2,500. We've taken the $50,000 and bought Chromebooks with.
That's correct.
123 versus 2,500.
Right, and it's roughly $19.50 a Chromebook. If you look at it, that's what it's going to cost us.
I calculated it as a 5% fee, which
Yeah.
is pretty, reasonable, I believe. So, go ahead.
I was just gonna say real quick, how often do we need to change these over? How, when they're obsolete, do we have them on a plan?
So typically, yes, we do have them on a plan. However, I would be remiss if I didn't warn you that we've got a big bubble coming, because we've taken in a lot of devices here all at the same time that will start to expire around 2027, 2028, around that time frame. But typically, we have a rotation process in place, and we'll begin. This will give us some respite from that for a few years, potentially. But eventually, we will need to look at keeping our rotation going.
So 5 to 6 years.
Yeah, and typically that's just the end of life. The hardware and software requirements move past. You know how it is with your phones. Suddenly, your phone doesn't support the latest version of the app that you like, and things like that. It's very similar with Chromebooks.
And we know with the pandemic, we had a lot that went home that were damaged or didn't come back, so this will help replace those.
That's correct. This puts us in really good shape.
Do we have a motion to adhere to the grant and also pay the consulting fee? We have a motion from Mrs. Atkinson. Do I have a second? Second from Mr. Badgett. All those in favor? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you to your team for their work they did over the summer and will be doing. Okay. At this time, we open it up for public comment. Mrs. Freeman?
Kaylee Jessup.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Kaylee Jessup. I graduated from East Surrey High School in 2017, and I am currently in my second year of law school at Wake Forest University. And full disclosure, I'm here tonight as part of an assignment for my education law class.
Okay.
We were required to attend a board meeting and speak during the public comment period. So I appreciate you giving me a few minutes of your time, and I promise I will keep this brief. So when I reflected back on my Surrey County Schools education, the biggest gap I can see for me and my peers was the need for some sort of like required financial literacy class, and I was happy to discover that that happened as of 2020. So I think that's great. And as I was reading through previous agendas and looking back at prior meetings, I feel like the most important thing I could say tonight is thank you. As a Surrey County student, I didn't really understand what a school board does, but as a law student who's witnessed the craziness of the past few years, I've seen like the challenges that school boards have faced and the difficult decisions that you all have had to make, and I have a greater appreciation for what you all do. And I know that I was blessed to know incredible teachers and staff during my time at Westfield Elementary and Pilot Mountain Middle and East Surrey. And I'm just super grateful to have had the opportunity to grow up here in Surrey County. And I just want to say thank you for your willingness to serve this community. So thank you all.
Thank you very much. Thank you. If I can ask, where did you do your undergrad?
Wake Forest.
At Wake Forest, you're there in law school. Well, congratulations.
Are they going to let us weigh in on your grade for your
Exactly. Exactly.
We'll be glad to write a letter. Whatever.
I was gonna
Thank
ask
you.
you, who's the professor for that course now?
John Camegno.
Okay.
He practices in New Jersey.
It's online?
It is. It's my only online class.
Okay. Thank you. Moving into our comment section, Dr. Reeves, you commented on a couple of these things that we've participated in with the Surrey Central ribbon cutting, also Ag Day. I got to participate in Ag Day as a parent, and I have to say I was most impressed with our student presenters. I had a teacher come up to me and say, point out one of his students in particular and say that student has really stepped up today. So I want to say that we are grateful for these leadership opportunities that our students have, how well spoken they were. I learned that we also have a state representative in the Miss Agriculture USA competition who will be participating next summer in the United States program, who speaks incredibly well to agriculture in our community and in our state. But we also had a number of partners from the community who participated, so a big thank you to all of them. We also have, since Ag Day, I've also had some interest expressed in offering something like that for construction. Not necessarily for the younger kids, but there's an opportunity that could be coming up to really promote that.
Can you wait till April? We've got it coming up.
Oh, you've got something then too? Okay,
Yeah.
good. Okay. But then also, I've heard from different, in various conversations across the community, people who are incredibly impressed with our Surrey Yak and Works program and our internships that we are offering in addition to that. I want to say we have close to 175 students in all of our schools, high schools, who are participating in some level of internship. And so just a tremendous thank you to the businesses who provide for that. And then also to acknowledge, it was stated earlier as we recognized our Leader of the Month, the opportunity that we had to visit Gentry to really see some hands-on learning. We had an opportunity, we got invited to sit with students during lunch. That was kind of nice, to sit with them and hear about their day, but also to witness, to see them in the classroom and also to visit with all of our teachers as well during that time. So a lot of great things going on in our communities. At this time, I'll open it up to the rest of the board members.
Well, this year's been, I've got to do my favorite thing, and that's do school visits. During the pandemic, we didn't get to do a lot of that, and I really enjoy that. And going into the schools, I see the teachers, they're building relationships with the children, they're teaching the curriculum, and most of all, they're making those children feel that like they're important. Every child doesn't get that at home. They don't have the whatever to somebody to encourage them and make them to feel like they're important. They are important. The just like everybody else, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate everything all the employees do in Surrey County Schools. Our custodians, I believe you need a clean school for the students to go to school in. It creates an atmosphere that better learning, and I appreciate the child nutrition. It's hard to do your schoolwork if you're hungry, and just everybody in the school system, Surrey County school system, doing a great job, and I appreciate it very much because I have several grandchildren in the school, and I appreciate what everybody does for them. Thank you.
I don't have as many as you do, but I do have two.
You're working on
I do. I'm working on it. Yeah. Well, nothing I can do about it, Clark. Cause but I do want to say how proud I am of our students, of our staff, of our administration. We saw the numbers last week. I think Surrey County educational attainment and catching back up. We knew there was going to be a lag because of what we went through for the last 2 years, but to see that growth and being ranked 17th in the state out of 115 systems, and we're seeing it working, we're not going to get there overnight, but we're going to get there as we can. And I love all our students and all our staff, but tonight I wanted to say a special thank you to our career and technical education program, the internships, the apprenticeships, the ag day, the trucking, the construction, and we're working at the college with the school system to find a way to partner to do even more. So we all know, and I try to tell my students when I was a career development coordinator in the schools that, that college degree means nothing if it doesn't lead to a career. So we shouldn't be going out there to get a piece of paper for no reason. And I see our students. I teach construction at Surrey Community College, and those students are going to graduate with a 2-year degree and make more money than most 4-year degree students. So we've got to continue to promote it. We've got to continue to keep our students in our internships, apprenticeships. I'm very happy with our teacher apprenticeship program we're working on to grow new teachers within our system. And I'm excited for the future of our system, and especially for the future of our kids, because I've got, like I said, I've got a 6-year-old and a 10-year-old, and I cannot wait to see where they go and how they grow in our system and their careers. Thank you.
Everyone else was mentioning several things that have been going on. I went to Ag Day as well, and I think every time I go somewhere, whether it's Gentry, as of last week, I learned a lot about some online grammar check kind of programs. Well, what else? Ag Day, I learned a lot of things that I didn't know, and I grew up on a farm. Of course, we didn't have everything some of those folks had, and I leave everywhere we go feeling proud and excited. I take something with me everywhere I go, and I know the kids in the classroom that they do the same. We talk a lot about and wanting to provide that schools to be a safe environment for teachers and for students, place where kids feel appreciated, loved, capable. And I thought as the Johnsons, as Steve Johnson was here and we were talking about the donation from his brother Lewis, I thought, that's what we want kids to feel like. We want them to, and Steve and Lewis, they were both very much, successful, contributing members of our community and our society, and they have great feelings about where they came from. But they earned the skills, learned the skills, acquired the skills to go wherever they wanted. And Lewis went way out west and spent a big part of his life. So, and then as Kaylee talked about how proud she was to be a graduate of East Surrey and Surrey Central, and to see her face kind of light up when she got to talk a little bit about that. And Miss Robertson, and to see the kids, hear the kids talking about her, I'm just so proud to be a part of Surrey County Schools. Again, as we said, things change, we change. We've got things we need to work on, and we know that, but we're doing everything we can to address it. So, thank you.
You will notice next we have all of our announcements. So we have a number of school visits coming up this month. There is one more thing that I will touch on that Dr. Reeves sent out to all of the entire system, and that has to do with our school performance grades. So you'll recall in last month's meeting, we shared the report card for how our schools performed based on proficiency and growth. And there is a survey that is out by EdNC. You can go to their site to click on that survey, and you'll need to scroll to the bottom of the page when you find it. But that's actually the survey, and it's asking for information for feedback for how that's balanced. So at this time, proficiency receives an 80% weight, whereas growth receives 20%. And you'll recall we saw a number of our schools receive some incredible growth scores that should be recognized by our students. So I will mention that. In addition, and that survey is out until October 10th. So in addition to the visits that we have on here, we want to encourage us as a board, but also everyone else who is interested. That is a public survey that you can weigh in on. So with that, we will make a motion. We actually need to go back into closed session.
Madam Chairperson, we need a motion to resume closed session for the reasons originally stated.
Okay, do we have a motion to go into closed session?
I'll make a motion to go into closed session.
Thank you, Mrs. Atkinson. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second for Mr. Goins. All those in favor? We are now in closed session, which means y'all get to go home. Thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you.
Have something good for supper.
Yes.